Harsh winter weather can be the biggest threat to high tunnels, hoop houses, and greenhouses. Strong winds and heavy snows can test the stability of even the most well-designed high tunnel. The odds are your structure will need at least some attention during the winter months to ensure that it isn't negatively impacted by heavy snow. And if you don't take the steps required to protect your structure from heavy snows, it might just spell disaster for your high tunnel. So in today's video, I'm going to provide some of the best methods and tips that you can implement for your structures so you can keep them going strong all winter and for years to come. Let's go. It's important to note that the first lines of defense in any kind of winter protection for these structures are the structures themselves. Having large diameter, heavy gauge tubing for your framing, having truss and truss supports within the structure, having closer bow spacing, 4-foot bow spacing instead of 5 or 6-foot bow spacing. Outside of that, structure shape can actually help as well. Having a Gothic or peaked structure shape can help some of the snow shed off of the structure. If you do have a round structure, I would highly recommend going with the closer bow spacing, like a 4-foot bow spacing. I'd still recommend having trusses and truss supports in your round structure. Those are some things you could do to at least check off some of those important aspects of snow defense that can ensure more success when it comes to defending against snow than otherwise. One of the first things you can do in preparation for winter coming is battening down your structure. This might sound a little odd, but there are places on your structure that can be tightened down or clamped down for the winter. For example, your roll-up sides. Your roll-up sides, the plastic will extend past the end of the structure. There's spring wire channel that goes over the end hoop all the way down to the top of the baseboard. What this means is where the roll-up sides past the end hoops on each end of the structure, spring wire can be put over top of the excess roll-up plastic and into the channel behind it. For example, this right here, this has already been battened down by the farm owner and is battened down from the top of the bottom of the hip rail all the way down to the top of this roll-up. Just remember, if you come out here in the winter on an unseasonably hot day and you want to ventilate, you have to remember to remove the spring wire before you try to roll it up. Otherwise, you'll have a little bit of a cut. Depending on how your end walls are designed, you also have the option of putting a small piece of plastic over any vents that won't be used. And here's an example of a deactivated aluminum shutter that has had plastic put on its exterior to better seal it off. This specific shutter had this type of non-electric operator, and if you have one of these non-electric operators, you're going to want to remove this black tube here by unthreading it and taking it in somewhere warm, because these don't do very well through the freeze thaw of winter. So after you remove that non-electric operator, you can actually use spring wire to seal up on the exterior of the shutter's location. And this is also the time where if you have small gaps underneath your baseboard, this is the time to fill them in before the first snow comes. You have to fill those in before winter. Otherwise, believe it or not, snow will actually, with strong winds, shoot itself underneath the baseboard and into the structure. So before snow falls, it's the perfect time to batten up your structure wherever you need to. Next, so we're talking about preparing for snowfall and how to protect your structures from snow. Battening down the structure is one of those things, but you might have to remove a couple of things too. Here, this structure still has shade cloth on it, and this is a perfect example for you guys because shade cloth, while it's great in the summer months, I would highly recommend you remove it in the winter months if you're in a location that gets snow. It doesn't help that these antiquated spacer blocks are still on this structure. These are a relic of a non-electric double layer system. That doesn't help the snow come off the structure. If you don't remove this over the thaw and freeze of snow that happens over the course of the year, it wouldn't be unlikely that you'd have ice form on top of the shade cloth as well, which is quite heavy. Shade cloth is not smooth. So unlike plastic where the snow can just kind of fall off the sides, shade cloth has a tendency to hold snow. So I can't stress enough, if you have shade cloth on your structure, please remove it before snows come in. Another feature that can hold on to snow in a negative way are gutters. Freestanding high tunnels, hoop houses, and greenhouses that have gutters should definitely remove them before heavy snows. That's because snow has a tendency to build up at the hip rail where the gutters are installed. And this prevents snow on the top of the structure from falling off freely, and that can be dangerous. So if you have gutters on your structure, definitely consider removing them and putting them back on in the spring. So now we're going to talk about how to get snow off of your structure. Most of the time, this can easily be done through this first method I'm going to show you. You could do this a number of times during a snowfall, and this is going to be the easiest, and you don't need anything for it. Now, I'd recommend wearing gloves. This is the pat method. If you're wearing gloves, you can walk inside your structure, and usually if your plastic is installed relatively tightly and you're a single layer covered structure, you can just walk along the edges and pat the plastic and the snow will fall off. You can see here there's a number of locations that have snow on it. I'm just gonna pat the snow and you'll see how it comes off. Not bad, right? And you can do this around the whole perimeter. You could walk the whole perimeter in probably about 3 to 5 minutes, depending on the size of your structure. It will actually shake a lot of the snow off the structure, even up to the peak. But if you can't get to the peak, at least you're getting off all of this weight, and then the snow that's on the peak can slowly make its way down the sides of the structure. I'm gonna put the camera outside so you can see what it looks like as I pat from the outside. Not bad, right? That did a decent amount. Now we could do that on the whole structure, but I'm going to show you a few other ways you can get snow off that are relatively low stress. Let's go inside and I'll show you what else I do. You know, you could use a broom. These bristles are a little stiff, so I'm going to put a towel on it. This is really rudimentary stuff here. You might have a shop broom that's a little better. I'm just going to put this towel on it, tie a knot with this ace bandage, and now I have myself a snow pusher. It's really just another way to do the pat method, but higher. Basically, I'm using a broom to do the pat method instead of my hand for the parts that I can't reach. Then once it gets down here, I can just use my hand. Now, if you needed to, you could also take this broom outside to pull some off of the structure. This is a really short broom. This is what I had laying around, but you could have a shop broom, put a towel on it. That would allow you to reach on top and pull some snow off of the structure. You can also use a broom to sometimes the snow will build up on the hip rail. You can see here, snow is kind of stuck on the hip rail. You can use the broom to break up the snow on the hip rail, and that gives the snow that's on the rest of the structure a chance to kind of slide a little bit when you pat it. So I'm gonna sweep this whole hip rail here, and then I'm gonna go inside and pat all of it off, and you can watch from the outside as I do that. So it's pretty well cleaned off and ready for more snow. So that if it snowed a number of more inches, I could come out here and do the same thing. But that was extremely easy, and it gets the point across that if you keep up with the snow removal, it may not be that difficult. It's probably going to be a lot easier than waiting a number of hours and then having to deal with more snow. So here we are at the side of the structure, and the reason I wanted to stop and look at this now is currently there's 6 feet to the hip rail. Snow has tons of places to fall. This hasn't been filled up, but through the course of some of the most snowy places that we sell high tunnels, here in Cleveland, Ohio, for example, sometimes the snow will slowly build up as it falls off the side of the structure. And if it starts building up high enough, it is recommended that you actually remove the snow from the side of the structure. Get the shovel out, shovel it out, or if you have equipment, God bless you, but you're gonna wanna remove some of that snow so that snow on the structure has somewhere to fall. What you don't want is to have snow build up to here, let's say, and then the snow that's on the structure in the next snowfall, it has nowhere to go. It has no choice but to build up on the structure itself. That's a huge risk. You want to have space for snow to fall next to your structure. So that's another thing you might have to do if snow builds up enough over the course of the season. Take some time, remove some of the snow next to your structure. You won't regret it. I wanted to pop over to this side of the structure. One other thing about roll-up sides. This structure here has a gearbox operator. It can remain on here in the winter. If things thaw out, they can plug, they can put a hook into this and rotate the handle up, and no big deal. But if you have automated roll-up sides, this is extremely important. You want to deactivate them during events when you can have snow. If that means deactivating them for a month or 2, whatever, be safe and do so, because if you do not deactivate your roll-up sides and you get snow that comes up to here on your structure, but you have a little span of days where sun hits the structure and it gets super hot inside, if you have not deactivated your automated roll-up sides, it will initiate those to begin rolling up. And if there's 2.5 feet of wet snow on your roll bar, the roll bar is not going to come up, but the roll-up motor is still going to turn the roll bar. And what that means, in that situation, the plastic loses. It will rip the plastic from your hip rail down towards the roll bar. It's extremely important. If you're gonna have a lot of snow and you have automated sides, be sure to deactivate your automated roll-up sides for the winter, or for at least the period of time that you're worried about getting large snow events. It could just save your roll-up side. If you want to get all of these winter tips in writing, we also have a winter maintenance guide PDF document. And you can get it by going to the link in our description, signing up for our email list, and the first email we send will be a link to the downloadable, savable PDF document. If you already have one of our Tunnel Vision Hoops high tunnel greenhouse kits, thanks for supporting our small business. If you're someone who's looking for a strong, well-designed high tunnel greenhouse kit, we'd love to hear from you. You can reach us at tunnelvisionhoops.com or this QR code. Thanks for watching.